Hello, YouTube, and welcome to our first Future Flying webinar of 2022. As you can see, we're trying something a little different this year. We are going to be live streaming our webinars on YouTube to make it easier for you guys to join in and to watch it back afterwards. You can join in the conversation in the comments, but we are going to have to work hard to try and fit everything in that we want to ask. So please bear with us if we don't get to your question. So kicking off 2022, we have one of my favorite airline CEOs, Mr. Birgir Jonsson, CEO of Play. And before we dive into our conversation with him, please sit back and enjoy this little video recap of how far Play has come already. It seems almost impossible to believe that just over 6 months ago, we were here talking to the Play CEO about getting ready to launch his airline. Fast forward to today, and Play has successfully launched services to 9 European destinations. It has grown its fleet to 3 aircraft and has carried more than 100,000 passengers already. But that's just the start of the Play story. In a few short months, the airline will be landing on US soil for the first time. First to arrive will be Baltimore, Washington in April, closely followed by Boston in May. Announced just today, these routes will be further complemented by the addition of New York Stewart, reaching a new demographic and stimulating new markets for the airline. Before the end of the year, Play will double its European connections. It will also double its fleet. And we wouldn't be surprised if there were a few more announcements on the North American side of the network too. Join us in welcoming the brave airline CEO who saw the silver lining in the pandemic to our webinar today, Mr. Birgir Jonsson. Well, I am delighted to welcome back to Simple Flying, CEO of Play, Mr. Birgir Jonsson. Mr. Jonsson, how are you doing?
Great. I'm sitting here in dark and gloomy Iceland, but apart from that, I'm doing well.
It does look pretty dark outside there, and a bit cold probably, but I'd love to come and visit, and I am going to come and visit soon. I've already booked my tickets, so I can't wait. So lots to talk about. I mean, it seems crazy that you guys have only been up and running for just over 6 months. You know, it feels like you've been around forever. But it was a pretty good first 6 months considering everything that you were up against. I understand you had over 100,000 passengers. So in your words, how was 2021 for you?
Interesting times, to be sure. But as you say, we had our first flight in June, and our load factor for those 6 or 7 months were just over 50%, 53%, if I remember correctly. Which we are extremely happy about. I mean, in these times, you don't know what the benchmark should be. For a startup airline, COVID times, restrictions going back and forth, you don't know. But we are extremely satisfied and encouraged, especially considering that we are operating in a really tight market. These are mostly Icelandic people going abroad or people going to Iceland, tourists coming to Iceland, and we haven't really realized our full business model. So, in order to be able to fly with 100,000 passengers that selected us in this time is I think it's a great achievement, and we have I think 98% on-time performance. Really happy with all our systems and digital infrastructure, and you know, we are rocking and rolling in the new year.
That's really good to hear. I'm so pleased for you. And I guess, you know, like you say, it's not normal times. So a 60-odd% load factor, that's actually quite impressive when you hear of some of them coming out of the more established carriers. But have you got kind of a break-even number? You know, where does it stop being profitable to operate those routes?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to tell you that we are profitable last year. We're not. We're still losing money, and we only have 3 aircraft at the moment. We're taking delivery of 3 more now in the spring, and I guess that's the kind of size you at least need in order to utilize the fixed cost, just having the AOC structure and 6-8 aircraft, and the load factor. I mean, we are assuming that we are between 80 and 90% load in utilization in a normal year. So we have a way to go, but the first step is very promising, and And we have a big step in the spring when we launch the US operation, and at that point we have the full business model or structure up and running. Up until now, we're only kind of running on kind of half capacity.
Yeah, I completely understand. But I think, you've done an awful lot of good work in terms of gaining the trust of the passengers. To have that many people willing to fly with an airline they've never heard of before in the current environment, I agree, you should be absolutely pleased with performance so far. And you've been expanding in Europe. You've touched a lot of new destinations by now. What was your best performing destination last year, or the one that was maybe a bit of a surprise?
Well, the ones that are best performing are perhaps not the ones that are a surprise. I mean, we are, even in summertime, it's dark and gloomy also almost in Iceland. So we have been really successful in our kind of leisure destinations to let's say Tenerife, to Alicante, to Barcelona, these kind of places. And in those routes, we are seeing almost and often 100% load, 90% something load. It's mostly the European city destinations that are tracking the kind of numbers down, because it's difficult to sell people to go on a leisure weekend trip to a city, for example, like Amsterdam, which is in a full lockdown and curfew. So, but we take it on the chin, and we have a big expansion in the spring. I think we have over 20 destinations now on sale, and I think, like most airlines, we're seeing the last couple of weeks now, first weeks of the year, January, absolutely the sales are rocketing. It looks like the traveling public has decided that COVID is over.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, as you've seen, the UK is planning to drop our testing entirely from in a week or so's time.
Yeah.
What's the situation in Iceland? Like, is it easy for people to come from different parts of Europe and visit now?
You have to be vaccinated and you have to have some kind of a test. But I think the discussion here is, like in all countries, about lifting restrictions. And even though the number of cases are growing and they're higher than ever, we seem to realize that it's not as serious as it was before in terms of pressure on the health system. But going into the spring and into the summer, it's absolutely clear that people want to get going and moving and seeing the world.
Definitely. I think I feel that thirst myself. And let's talk a bit about this year, because it's going to be an exciting moment for you. Baltimore in April, Boston in May. Why did you pick those destinations?
Yeah, it's worth it to stop a little bit and describe our business model. And the model is a hub and spoke model centered around connecting US to Europe with a short stop in Iceland, like 1 or 2 hours in Iceland. And by choosing the destinations, we look to the fact that we have to utilize our crew and our aircraft as much as we can. And our aircraft are leaving Iceland, let's say in the afternoon, let's say 4-ish in the afternoon. They fly to the US, let's say to Baltimore. They get back in the early morning, and then they do a return trip to Europe and are ready to go back to the States in the afternoon. So it means that we can get a really high utilization from our aircraft on operation. And we simply, by choosing the destinations, we just let the data decide. And in this day and age, it's easy to get the numbers and see where the traffic is flowing from, where people are searching on the internet, Google Flights and these kind of things. And these are established East Coast hubs and destinations. And it's absolutely unbelievable and really comforting to see that, once we launched, the bookings just flowed in.
That's great to hear. And it's funny because this brings back memories of WOW, because WOW used to fly to both those destinations. And I believe when it started scaling back, they were the last two to be dropped. So there's obviously some demand there.
And we're in fact the first ones also. So when WOW launched its US operation, and I, in fact, at that time was deputy CEO of the company, and these were the first destinations simply because there is a lot of demand flowing between.
I guess some things never change. But you are going to have some competition, although Iceland Air did pull out of Baltimore, Washington. I believe they're going back in May, and they'll be also serving Boston quite a few times with their 737 Maxes. Are you concerned about that? Are you keen? Do you think you can draw some passengers away from your competitor there?
And not at all concerned. I mean, Icelandair have been operating this hub and spoke model for decades and have been doing it really well. And in some sense have created the market. And we as a low-cost airline just come into the market and we take a piece of it built on price because we have a lower cost. And I think that the major kind of approach of a low-cost airline is not really to create new destinations. You are a discounter. You let someone else create the reason to travel and the destination, and then you come in and you offer a price, and then you have to make sure that you have an operation or a structure of a company that you are actually able to survive and make a profit at the low price. And no, I mean, I think that Icelandair has a great model, but I'm not concerned about the competition with them at all. As our numbers from last year's show, I mean, we are those 100,000 passengers, if we just speak clear English, are coming from the pockets of Icelandair, because this is the core Icelandic market, the Icelandic public traveling abroad and tourists coming from Iceland, and 100,000 seats changed pockets basically. So I have absolutely no doubt, and in fact I see that now after almost over a month in sale in the US, we see it happening again. We make sure that we have a competitive enough price that we are always in the top 3 in the booking engines, and we win passengers that way.
That's great to see. I think a lot of people don't look much further than the top couple of entries on the booking engine, and they're not too bothered exactly who they fly with, as long as they get them there safely and on time, right?
Absolutely, and I think this is such an important point and such a almost sometimes a sensitive point in the modern kind of aviation world, is that the brands and the brand loyalty of airlines is diminishing really fast. And because there, as you point out, the safety and the operational issues are almost identical between carriers because of the heavy regulation. The absolute kind of experience of flying, people they don't look at it as a life-changing experience anymore. I mean, you just get into an aircraft and you sit there for a few hours, and then you get out of the aircraft and you do what you actually want to do. And if you are on the booking engines and you are offering a price and all the parts of the product that people like, and I think at the end of the day, there's a big part of the market that is very, very kind of flowing between brands.
I think particularly, younger people, whereas we haven't, maybe been shipped around the world on all SkyTeam or, all one of the loyalty programs all the time. We're much more fluid, and we'll go with the lowest price. So we've got more money in our pockets to spend when we get to the other end, I think.
That's at least our target market. So I mean, we could never compete with a person that has many millions of points or miles with a loyalty program and wants to spend them on his or her holiday. But we can definitely be relevant when it comes to a price-sensitive segment.
Cool, really good to hear, and obviously the image fits that brand as well. I think it's great. So, where are you going next? That's the big question.
Well, we have an aggressive. I'm always talking about now. We're kind of growing slowly and we're taking short steps. But in aviation, it's always quite big, so you have to do it quite fast in any case. But we will add a third destination in the US in this summer, in fact in June, where we will start flying to New York, and in fact a great airport outside of New York that is called New York Stewart International.
Okay.
Which I have had the privilege of visiting and looking at it, and I'm absolutely in love. I think that we have found there a segment, a catchment area which is completely underserved when it comes to international travel. It's in the Hudson Valley. It's about an hour and a half from Manhattan. So many local attractions, and it allows us basically to create the lowest price between Europe and New York. And I'm unbelievably excited about this.
I'm excited too. That sounds incredible. And yeah, we've heard other low-cost airline CEOs speak about Stewart. I know David Neeleman in particular has his eye on Stewart as a New York destination. So, you could end up with some really good connections there. And I think, sometimes it can take you more than an hour and a half to get from JFK to Manhattan with the traffic. So a great
Yeah,
pick.
it's always a matter of where you kind of want to spend the time. I mean, this is a small airport. It's like a military base, I guess, uh, uh, and you can almost see the car park from the aircraft. So you don't have to spend any time on passport and getting your luggage. But the physical distance between the airport and central Manhattan is longer, but there's less traffic, and it's a different experience. But what's also important to realize that not everyone is going into central Manhattan, and if we look at what's happened in that area, this is the Hudson Valley and upstate New York. In COVID times, there's been a migration from the city to that area. And I think real estate prices have grown 30-40% in that area in this time, because there's been an influx of people from the city. And these people have no way of traveling internationally from their home region. So I in fact think that this is another market from JFK or Newark. This is a completely different market, and I would be very interested in the future even having two destinations in New York, because I think this is a completely unique market.
Really interesting. I guess with people working from home, it's shifted the focus a little bit. And I think any of us would be happy to immigrate somewhere that's not JFK, where you don't have to queue up for quite so many hours. So I know, as well as expanding in the US, you're also expanding in Europe. I understand you're going to be up to like 19 destinations in Europe by the summer. So how are you picking the destinations that you serve? Are you starting to think about that traffic that's going to be coming from the States as well?
It is a mixture, and our whole model is quite flexible and quite robust, but it has to take account of few sources of passengers. One is the typical via, transatlantic hub and spoke passenger, people that are going from, let's say, Boston to Berlin, or Boston to Amsterdam, or Copenhagen or something. And that's let's say that's the backbone of the network. These kind of connecting cities. But then there's also to and from point-to-point traffic from Iceland. I mean, like I mentioned before, Icelandic public really love to travel in the summer, and we need to have our sun and ski holidays and these kind of things. And so we have a roster of those kind of destinations, like Malaga, Alicante, Barcelona, which are not traditionally kind of hub and spoke places, and also tourists coming to Iceland. We're flying to Prague, for example. We have those kind of so it's a mixture of destinations, but the underlying logic is the kind of hub and spoke model to the US. So it's a mixture of city destinations, leisure, point to point. It's a black art.
It sounds like it. Lots of number crunching, I'm sure, going on behind the scenes. So do you have like a ceiling of growth? I'm sure you're going to be announcing more destinations in the US, maybe not this year, maybe next year, I don't know. But is there like a finite number that you want to serve?
We last year, when we did our inaugural flight, we at the same day we started our IPO. So we are listed on the Icelandic Nasdaq Growth Stock Exchange market. So during that time we obviously had to publish some kind of a vision for the future, and that is really the plan that we are working on and executing. And it's easiest to describe it in a number of aircraft per year. So we started with 3 aircraft last year. 2022 we will have 6. We'll go up to 10 in spring 2023, then 12, and then kind of the finite number of, not the finite, but the let's say the highest peak of that plan is 15 aircraft in 2025. I really think at that point in time we should stop and consider options really closely, because if we go over that, I'm really scared that we will lose our flexibility and are not as able to kind of dance with the demand and the seasonal fluctuations in this model. Because I'm really scared of having too many aircraft and having too big a network that I have to fly just to fly. I want to be able to kind of leave something on the table in the summer, because I don't have too much capacity, but then I know that I'm pretty covered in the winter when the demand is less. So this has been one of the lessons that we have learned in the last 10, 15 years, looking at the, Icelandic aviation dynamic in this model and in this market, is that we are not, it's not our intention and objective to be the biggest airline in the world, or have 100 aircraft, or create some kind of a global connection hub in Iceland or something. We just want to be a really flexible kind of operator in this model and be profitable, of course.
Of course. And going forward, those aircraft, they're going to be a mix of A320 family jets, are they?
Yeah. What we have secured, I think, up to 10, basically what we will need for next year. And those are all 320 ones and 320 all NEOs. And that is really our target mix of I think of those 15 that I mentioned, I think it's roughly 9 320s, 6 321s, roughly something like that. So we're mixing kind of capacity and but still able to swap around planes and have communality in the crew and maintenance and all that.
And I hear you might be getting some straight from the production line as well. They're not all going to be second-hand planes.
No. We have the ones we have now are okay. They're not new, but I think they're 2018 or 19 vintage. But the ones we're getting are coming straight from the production line, and then in our specification, in our kind of desired profile. So and that's also the answer to the question, why would you start an airline in COVID times? If you are crazy enough to do it, and you can get the right kind of funding, you are able to get really good deals. I mean, 2-3 years ago, you wouldn't be able to get 320 neos. I mean, no one could do it. But now you can build a fleet if you are quick enough and have the financial strength.
That's really interesting. And I guess that's quite exciting for you, being able to specify the cabin rather than just flying with whatever it comes with. Are we expecting a loss of legroom in the cabin as a result?
We have an all economy cabin, but we will have different pitch or different legroom, and our passengers will be able to simply buy what they want to have. But we're not going into any kind of business class or big seat or anything like that. So it's all economy seating with different pitch. So we're trying to keep it easy, flexible, and manageable.
That sounds good. And it's interesting that you say COVID has actually helped you get the delivery slots for these aircraft. I'm guessing it's been a similar story at the airports, right? Where you may have had trouble getting in before, and now all of a sudden there are slots available. Have you seen that sort of impact?
I mean, slots have not been an issue for us at all, really. I mean, I probably couldn't get a slot at Heathrow that I wanted, but I wouldn't want to fly there anyway. But I mean, there's all kinds of things. It's access to people. I mean, we are hiring now 150 people, cabin crew and flight crew. I mean, we got 5,000 applications.
Wow.
I mean, you can create a good team when you talk to, I mean, especially when you need kind of some specialist, let's say digital specialists that are good at travel tech and stuff like that. It's very easy to hire those kind of people now when the industry is in a slump. Before you'd have to hunt them, and it's there are a lot of benefits.
You're a very brave man, Mr. Jonsson. A lot of people wouldn't.
Let's see. That remains to be seen.
Amazing. So just one final part I wanted to just get into with you is this stopover model. So I know at the moment, mainly the flights going to the US will be just using Keflavik to kind of change flights. But will you eventually be selling the ability to stay in Iceland for 2 or 3 nights as part of the transit?
And in fact, are doing that.
Okay.
Our service teams are doing that every day, and a lot of people want to do it. This has been a historical model. I think Icelandair and the predecessor Loftleiðir did it before, like 50, 60 years ago. And there's especially some kind of a collective memory in the American market about this. Some people's parents did it and something like that. But there's a lot of people that are interested in coming, let's say, from Boston, stopping 1 or 2 days, see the Blue Lagoon, see the nature, and then flying on to Europe. And that's a part of the model. But the biggest part is just people that want to get to the destination quickly and begin to do whatever they want to do, basically.
Okay. And to support this, are you looking at any kind of partnerships with other airlines? Maybe, I don't know, an interline agreement or something to feed or to connect with the passengers at either end of your route map?
We have had some very light discussions. It's something that we would always be very interested in talking about, but it's not something that we are really putting a focus on, but absolutely open to. In this, we are slightly going away from the low-cost hardcore model in this, that we, for example, interline the luggage. So you check in, for example, in Boston, and you don't see your suitcase until you reach Paris.
Okay.
And we would really so we are almost creating our own
interlining with yourself.
Yeah. But if there's someone else out there, then of course we are interested in that. But that's not a huge emphasis point for us.
Good to know. Okay. So you'll know that I recently got back from LA, launching a brand new airline out there that's keen to replicate exactly this sort of model. I think you've probably heard of Northern Pacific. They'll be based out of Anchorage, connecting the lower 48 with the Far East via a stopover in Alaska. What are your thoughts on their model? Do you think it can be replicated on the other side of the world? I mean,
in fact, I think that this Icelandair or Icelandic model is not unique at all. I mean, Finnair is doing it in Helsinki, and the guys in Dubai are doing it, and the hub and spoke system is nothing new. If you can find a logical geographical location to do it, and you know how to yield manage and control your capacity, and I'm sure those guys do, then I think this is a very, very proven approach and structure.
Great. Thank you so much for your thoughts on that. Well, I think that's about all we've got time for today, but thank you so much for sharing your new route announcement with us. Be sure to let us know what the next one is, because I don't doubt you're not finished yet. Am I right?
Never.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Best of luck with the US launches. And
my pleasure.
I can't wait to take my own trip on Play later in the year.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. And thank you so much to you for joining us today for the first of our Future Flying webinars for 2022. I hope you enjoyed the YouTube experience. I certainly did. We will be doing these regularly throughout the year, so keep an eye on Simple Flying's website and sign up to our email list to be notified early of the next forthcoming webinar, so you can pop it in your diary. Do visit the site for all the aviation news you can gather, enjoy our own videos on YouTube, and do check out our long haul channel as well. And of course, don't forget the podcast where me and Tom will chit chat about aviation every week. Thanks again for coming along. It's been great.